Hello, everyone, and welcome back to This Week in Guns, brought to you by Patriot Patch Company, VZ Grips, MAF Corporation, and FFL Payments. This show offers commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzz. I'm your host, Matthew LaRosiere, and I'm joined by who other except Radithan Johnson.
Now listen here. I sure hope I didn't hear any rapid fire from this end of the range.
Yeah, that's right. That Tom only eats wad cutters, right?
One at a time.
Oh God, how are you doing?
Good. It's been a couple of, I guess for the viewers, it's been a couple of weeks. For us, it hasn't been quite so long. But
no, it hasn't. And so, yeah, what's been going on, guys, is I got married. That was the beginning of the month. That was a big thing. You look, see. Got a little, and I intentionally got a gold band because, double rounded, because I wanted something that wouldn't scratch guns. And everyone's like, "Oh, why don't you just get with the rubber ones? Why don't you just wear the rubber ones?" And I think that is cringe. Just to be fair. But yeah, you all probably wind up wearing the rubber ones. I don't know if it's a cultural thing, but.
I'll probably wear a rubber one just because I've got an A5 that's in beautiful condition. Only the guy who had it before me obviously wore at least 3 or 4 rings, and he really liked to hold the gun tight when he shot it with those rings. And so the stock is just like butt fucked from being grabbed by rings.
So you know what I've noticed? Even before I had ring, because I never wore rings, I've noticed my shooting grip, it's never going to contact the stock.
Right.
Anyway. Because I kind of do that old way.
For his, it was on the grip. So I guess he was wearing rings on his right hand, probably because his left hand was also full of rings. It's the sort of people who own Auto 5s as gentlemen of fine taste.
Yeah, they're got rings
exquisite accoutrement.
Oh yeah. Oh no, but since you're a principled left-handed shooter, it would get on the grips.
Yeah,
that makes sense. That makes sense. Of course, I'm testing my grip with the platonic ideal of a firearm.
If it works here, it should work everywhere, and if it doesn't work elsewhere, it shouldn't be worth trying at all.
But then the other thing I had was the deadline for the main brief in the Hoover appeal, the auto key card case, where I'm representing Matthew Hoover, and we were on appeal to the 11th Circuit, and I really just wanted to make sure that we did our absolute best. I had an incredible amount of support from sources where you might not first expect it, and no support from the sources where
isn't that how it always works?
Isn't that all? Yeah. But so yeah, I guess we can go straight into our first story. That is what I wanted to show you guys without you having to pay the government to download it. There's the brief. It is 71 pages. If you guys want to see it, it's actually posted on the Fuddblasters Discord, and it's out there on Pacer. But I don't want to pay $3 to get back a copy of my own brief. So yeah. So I guess one thing we could do, just to give you guys a summary of the argument, is we can go and read the summary of the argument section. So just to give you an idea of all of the different points that we make. So I'll just read this out loud. Pivotal in this case is the classification of the auto key cards as unlawfully transferred machine guns, a legal question of statutory interpretation. There are no questions of degree when it comes to the National Firearms Act. Something is or is not a machine gun. The district court erred in failing to resolve and then submitting to the jury that legal question. Even so, no reasonable jury, properly instructed, could have returned a conviction as to Mr. Hoover. The government charged Mr. Hoover using a subpart of the federal machine gun definition respecting a combination of parts designed and intended in converting a weapon into a machine gun, thereby eliminating the context and limiting language attendant a single part under the same statute. The evidence is uncontested that the auto key card is a homogeneous piece of steel and thus cannot possibly manifest a combination of parts. The actus rea are simply absent. The theory that something is what it resembles in the firearm context was recently held to be without any objective hook in the statute by the Fifth Circuit. If the statute actually prescribes such conduct, then it is incredibly vague on that point and must be narrowly construed to avoid an absurd result. The auto keycard is a drawing on a homogeneous piece of steel, nothing more. Prosecuting and punishing Mr. Hoover for his role in talking about a drawing on a piece of metal presents substantial First and Second Amendment issues, which the district court failed to address in denying his motion to dismiss the indictment. The First Amendment protects that which manifests an intent to convey a message which is likely to be understood, like the auto keycard. If, on the other hand, the auto keycard somehow falls under Section 5845, that is the federal machine gun definition, then it is an accoutrement qualifying as an arm under the Second Amendment, and thus it was the government's burden to show that criminalizing something like the auto keycard is deeply rooted in American legal text, history, and tradition. The government refused to do so, and the district court allowed it to shirk this burden. In all respects, this case is about line drawing. The greatest art is that which goes up to the line without crossing it. In law, drawing lines is exclusively for Congress, interpreting those lines exclusively for the court, and neither of those duties are to be handed by a jury. To justify a conviction, it must be proven that an individual crossed a clearly defined line. Mr. Hoover merely talked about these lines. He did not cut or cross them. And then we get into intense legal nerd. So this is the one super interesting thing I just wanted to touch on. One case I brought up was an 11th Circuit case, it's S.W. Daniel, which is SWD, the Mac people. They had made, right after the FOPA deal, right, they had made SSM11A1s, which was meant to be single shot M11A1, which was it was just a Mac 11, like everything, but the mag well was closed off. And they were to sell it as a single shot weapon. And what SWD did was they, registered it, and then they were like, hey, this actually isn't a machine gun, give us a refund. And ATF's like, no. And so they sued. And SWD, being in Georgia, it was in the 11th Circuit. So how that case went down was the court, in holding it to be a machine gun, explained as follows. Assume, for example, parts A, B, and C are needed to make a machine gun. If parts A, B, C, and D are provided in a single-shot weapon and D can be eliminated from the gun, then that single-shot gun clearly contains any combination of parts from which a machine gun can be assembled. And all of those parts are in the possession or control of a person. That's actually not a bad legal analysis, no. Except I would use the design to shoot language if I was the court and trying to uphold that. And then I wanted to use the 11th Circuit own language back right to them. So I said, this case, though, presents the opposite of the S.W. Daniel problem. The government insisted on an inapplicable subdefinition, specifically a combination of parts designed and intended for converting a weapon into a machine gun, and applied it to a single homogeneous component. Here, there is no A, B, or C. There's only the card, the homogeneous piece of steel. So I thought that was... one, interesting, because I didn't know about the SSM11A1, which is very funny. Yep. But two, I think that's, I don't know, I was proud of that analysis.
It certainly forces them into a situation where they've got no other recourse but to, that argument and other arguments throughout. I guess I've read now probably about 50% of it on and off. But it forces them into a situation where the panel hearing this appeal will sort of necessarily have to get to the core argument here, which is, can a single homogeneous piece of metal be a combination of parts? The problem is if they come back and say yes, that sort of flips a bunch of ATF opinions on their head, because ATF is consistently held, essentially across the board, a homogeneous piece of metal that isn't already there is fine. Because there's been people at gun shows that have sold, it's essentially a drop-in auto steer that has all the profiling work done that doesn't, it's just missing the notch, the two notches that you cut in it, two slots. Yeah. It's missing the one hole, two slots. It's all that's missing, but the profiling work is all done on it. They've said that's not a machine gun. They've said that a strip of metal with Sharpie marks on it at the places that you'd bend it to turn it into a swift link isn't a machine gun. So the court would then have to come to an opposite position of what the ATF has held in the past, which is tricky. But then they'd also have to sort of, they'd have to massively weasel word their way around this opinion that they've had in the past, which is, if all the parts are there it's a combination of parts. If all the parts are there plus an extra part, it's a combination of parts. But
Right.
in a case in the opposite, like this case, if it's one part, is it all of the parts? Are they all
and
there?
is it even a part?
Right.
Because the like, and this was something that is one of the bases of the appeal. When something isn't defined in a statute, that doesn't mean that you can just like determine it to be whatever. You have to give words their ordinary meaning. And the first stop that the courts have always gone to is Webster's. And in the context of machinery, Webster's defined parts as an operative component of an apparatus. If
it's not operative. Even when you do cut it out, it doesn't work like the thing it's supposed to.
Right.
And of course, that's even in the evidence is like they keep saying like, oh, it's a picture of a lightning link. But then if you cut it out, it doesn't work like a lightning link. If something doesn't work like the thing it's supposed to be, is it that? I'd say for a machine, no. Like if I sold you a carton of eggs and said, this is a 350 small block Chevy, and you're like, okay, cool, thanks. Then you went and installed it and hooked it up to the transmission and turned the key and nothing happened. It's because it's not a 350 small block Chevy. It's something completely different.
Yeah, and so we have all of that record stuff. We also, very interestingly, have basically the government had the one witness, the one person who purported to have made one of these things, who was a ATF agent, who testified, and again, this is all public information. The transcripts are out there. Testified to the following specifically: it was a template. I cut out the template. Right before that, you had a government expert to talk about how ATF regulations work, who specifically said templates are not regulated.
Yep.
And I think he was right. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, you've always got to be cautious, right? There's never any slam dunks, because at the end of the day, you are dealing with human beings, right? You're convincing human beings to rule a certain way. But I feel really good about this. I got help from some very, very experienced people, and they're excited about it. If this person is excited about it, then it's like, all right, this means something good. Next up, I can't think of a good segue. So here's VZ Grips. Wow. VZ Grips, the longtime supporter of the show, a great Florida corporation based in Tallahassee, which for some reason is the capital of this state.
Fun fact. No, it's not. Fact.
It's really, I mean, I think it ought to be Orlando, but whatever. Yeah, let's see what's on Clarence here. It changes. Oh, what's that? Oh, that's kind of cool.
It's
EFAC military maintenance tool. Oh, that's kind of cool. You could use that for your range bag. Why not? And while you're there, while you're at vzgrips.com, why don't you use the promotional code ThisWeek15, that's THISWEEK15 for a 15% off discount. It's vzgrips.com. Thank you for supporting the show. After that, this is a big important. The Cargill, the Fifth Circuit bump stocks case, is set for oral argument February 28th.
Yep.
And SCOTUS blog, I always used to use SCOTUS blog as like a decent, level-headed place to get Supreme Court news. Let me read their little blurb on Cargill. Whether a bump stock, M-, an attachment that transforms a semi-automatic rifle into a fully automatic assault-style weapon, M-, is a machine gun, which is generally prohibited under federal law.
Yeah, I don't think that's I think that's a legal conclusion included in a summary about the question at the crux of this case, which
isn't even like the government didn't even say it that aggressively. So thank you, right. SCOTUS blog. Very very fair and balanced. Very cool.
So of course the root of this case, it's not being decided on Second Amendment grounds, which for us, I know I've said it multiple times in the past, where some of these cases we really want to see a Second Amendment ruling, like the pistol brace case. If we don't get a Second Amendment ruling on that by the end of the by the time the whole storm has blown over, it'll suck. It'll suck really bad because it's a good opportunity. I think that the bump stock case itself is a better vessel for reining in the ATF's overreach
through
than
the APA.
Right, through the APA than any of the other cases is. So, if we had to pick one of these cases, between the pistol brace rule and the frame of receiver rule and the bump stock rule, if we had to pick one of those to be the one that we get struck down on procedural, APA grounds, I think this would probably be the one, if nothing else, because the only thing it changed was one sentence, and that one sentence, whether you agree or not, just factually speaking, that one sentence was at least supported by some prior court decisions where the courts had found, or the courts had agreed with the ATF in saying that, pull means, like the pull of a trigger is analogous to function of the trigger. I think that's a horrible misreading of the law, because they would have said pull if that was the case and not function. But, there have been courts that have concluded that. And so ATF made this, made this rule based on those interpretations and added one sentence of clarification. Which, like, that's not, I mean, as far as what they're able to do, this has been like the least egregious of their APA violations, is I guess what I'm trying to say. Of these three, this is the least egregious APA violation. And if the Supreme Court's interested in hearing it, and this is from the Fifth Circuit, and the Fifth Circuit took it en banc and decided, this was not right. That's really good in our favor. Also, this one has the rule of lenity, the rule of lenity ruling in our favor, which is essentially what that says is that the bump stock itself, like even if we assume the APA process wasn't defective in this case, let's say ATF does actually have the latitude to make this rule. They concluded that it's not actually clear that a bump stock meets a single pull of the trigger, which again, I agree, it doesn't. Yeah. Like maybe you could argue an FRT does, maybe, but an FRT is at least closer, right, to being a single pull. A bump stock just isn't. Right.
And so the one thing that you guys on the show have heard me talk about before, but because the opportunities are waning, I just want to say this case has gone this far because it did not follow the mold. The other, none of the other bump stock litigation challenged the actual definite, going straight for it, saying this doesn't meet the statutory definition in the beginning, or to the effect that they did, it was just in passing, it wasn't fully fleshed out. The first people who brought this analysis was me and Joseph Greenlee, and we filed it in an amicus brief to another case, to the first bump stock case. And let me tell you, he and I wrote that brief in 48 hours and filed it without checking with our superiors. And we got fucking screamed at. They told us how stupid we were. Why would you go straight for it? And some of those drawings and stuff, I fucking had them made, but we got reamed out because our theory was so stupid. And then this Cargill case proceeds on that theory and wins. The takeaway there isn't just that I'm the best. Me and Joe Greenlee working together. Oh, I love him so much. He's a genius. He's a hyper genius. It's that you cannot trust the big name groups to actually try to come up with a good strategy, because they were all coalescing around the same thing. And guess what? All of those fucking cases did. They lost. They all.
I mean, like the first 3 or 4 of them didn't go well.
Yeah.
And then Cargill went right.
Dipshit grounds.
Right. I mean, I know a lot of them were very specific to the APA, or they were making APA arguments that of course,
notice and comment period wasn't properly it should have been.
And I'm you really think that you're going to get a judge that's actually the notice and
go back and do it again. Yeah,
that's not going to happen. Even if they did violate it and it was clear as day, a judge is still going to give them the leeway and be that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, no, I'm feeling spicy. I don't remember the name of the lawyer that that screamed at me over it. But if I remember it, because he's a big name, white shoe, you know, ivory tower, like $800,000 an hour type of guy. But if I remember who it was, next time we talk about this, I'm telling on him. But yeah, so it's exciting, and I feel like it's going to go our way in the Supreme Court. What do you think?
So I guess also in Supreme Court news, I know every gun tuber is talking about how Chevron going away means that ATF loses all their authority to make interpretations. And I really wish that they would take a screwdriver and stab it through their eye.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
Because like there are times in the past that the ATF was challenged on rules they made, and they relied on Chevron. They relied on Chevron to defend it.
Mm-hmm.
In this bump stock case, I don't think they've ever brought it up. In the pistol brace case, I don't think they've ever brought it up. In the frame and receiver rule, I don't think they've ever brought it up.
It was forced on them in the bump stop litigation by a reviewing court at one point, which was hilarious.
Right. The court was like, didn't you mean to say this?
Yeah. They've intentionally avoided it because they know the doctrine is on its last legs. But guess what? Chevron was an administrative action case.
Right.
It was still happening.
Right.
And they made Chevron to let it keep happening. But it's not going away. It's not going away as long as we, like, the only way that government agencies wilding goes away is if we actually give effect to the non-delegation doctrine.
Right. That'd be great. It'll happen right about the same time that Filburn gets overturned.
Yeah. And like maybe when we have term limits, right, or something. I don't know. But yeah, no, the end of Chevron is, I mean, it's not bad.
Right. And certainly the Supreme Court, based on all the lines of questioning, I guess look at me. I caught half of the oral arguments and then I tuned out. So it was the, I'm blanking on the name.
Just describe it. Don't like name cases. That's autistic.
That's awful.
Yeah.
They're specifically talking about, and I guess this case and the Loper case are both sort of tied in from a standpoint of they're trying to see if Chevron allows administrative agencies to fill in the blanks where blanks aren't actually specified as existing.
Yeah.
So I know in the Loper case, it's much easier to wrap my head around, but it's essentially something saying where
what the Loper case is about.
So the federal government, the Congress passed a law that said that some federal agency is allowed to regulate, they're allowed to promulgate rules regarding what it means to have sustainable fishing or what have you.
Oh, yeah.
And as a part of this, yeah, this is great. And one of the things that the law prescribes is that the federal government can require observers be on boats, but it doesn't mention anything about these observers costing money, and it does not mention who this fee would be assessed to. Would it be assessed to the federal agency? Would it be assessed to some general fund that the government has? Would it be assessed to the individual? It doesn't say anything about a fee or who it would go to. The agency then decided that means that the fee is going to be incredibly expensive. It's like $710 a day for an observer, which is interesting. It's a well-paid federal lizard. Mm-hmm. I guess because he's out in a cold boat and his scales need to be kept warm.
Yeah, they need to get his little terrarium.
And they, of course, are having the individual bear the burden of paying this fee. And so that's sort of the root cause of that case. And so just as an example there. So that's an example of how I think Chevron is likely to be curtailed, is when it comes to places where there isn't like the administrative agencies filling in a blank where there isn't actually a blank in the law is certainly a power they're going to lose. Right. Their capability to they're not going to lose the ability for Congress to write and this this federal agency will tell you what that means.
Right. Which they do on purpose constantly.
Right. They're always going to keep doing that. And the Supreme Court is probably not going to remove their ability to do that, because that would completely. I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably 75% of all of the quote unquote laws that our country currently operates under, at least since the 1970s, are all administrative laws. It's all stuff where Congress writes, we don't know how this works. Yeah, these guys will figure it out.
Well, and it's because the province of government has expanded so unbelievably dramatically in a few short decades. You have to understand that they're attempting to regulate in areas of, and Thomas Sowell put this amazingly. you know, economics, energy, transportation, engineering, right? Fuel. These are all areas that adult men will have spent decades becoming mildly competent in. So then the idea that a lizard lawyer could be simultaneously competent in all of these areas is insane. And so that's the theory why they need to do this. It's true. They do need to do this if they're going to regulate in all of these different areas.
Right. The question is, do they, well, I guess the first question is, do they have the power to? And then the second question is, do they need to?
Right. Do they need to? Probably not. They've succeeded in making everything worse. We were having a conversation about this today in the Discord where we were like, somebody was asking, like, they had seen the Chevy Montana or whatever, the overseas one. Mm-hmm. And they're, you know, super neat little compact truck. And they're like, oh, when are we going to get those over here? And I'm like, never, because the EPA has made it illegal to make a small truck.
Got the Ford Falcons that had, I know Ford, but the Ford Falcons that Australia has, where it's like, I mean, it's like, you know, the ultimate version of the Crown Vic, right? I don't know. I don't know if they're still body on frame. They'd better be, because I've convinced myself that I want one, but because really all I want is like a modern Crown Vic. And from a standpoint of modern, I mean, it needs to have Gen 1 OBD still.
Yeah. Is that like that paperclip diagnosis?
No, like that's modern. Modern means like it's electronic fuel injected.
Right.
That's modern. But like no computers. I want a touch screen. I don't want any of that.
Yeah, no, there's something. I have always wanted a Crown Vic too. I mean, God,
they're so great. But
I saw a factory. It was alleged to be a factory 5-speed Crown Vic.
Yeah, the Crown Vic Sports had it as an option, and I think sum total there was like 100 made every year for the Crown Vics were made because nobody wanted that, but I kind of want that.
Bro, it's like an F-150 stick just emerging from the floor.
Yeah, it gets rid of the middle seat in the front.
Yeah, it was so big. I'm like, that's what I need. Like if I was a crooked detective, that's what I would have.
If I had unlimited time and money, I'd get a Mercury Marauder, and then I'd get one of the Crown Vic Sports with the MT, and I'd mash them together. I'd have a Marauder with an MT.
One of the what was that car? It was the Ford. What's the Ford that looked? It was the 2-door from the 70s. God,
the LTD.
No, the other one.
And there's an LTD, there's a Maverick, there's the Thunder Turds.
Was there a cat one?
Cougar.
Yeah. It was a Mercury, right?
Yep.
Yeah. No, it was a 70s Mercury Cougar with a 351 Windsor.
Yep.
And they had bojangled a T5 onto the back of it. And I was the only person, like, you know, a close group of friends. I was the only one who could get that bitch into second. Everyone's like, oh, don't bother going to second. It just crunches. But I was like, no, I speak Tremec. And I would burn rubber so hard in that stupid thing. I loved that stupid car. It was because it wasn't because of the massive power of the 351, like
right.
Get Ford guys. No, it was because it was on pizza cutters. But oh man, yeah. I wonder how much of our audience we've just lost. They're like, this is a gun show. This is a gun show. What are we doing?
We don't have a Thias to police us.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, Chevron's like will it be curtailed? I bet it will. I bet the opinion comes down in our favor. Will that curtailing get rid of the ATF's ability to interpret rules like they've been doing with all this gun stuff? I almost guarantee you not.
It's going to get better.
It'll get better, certainly.
Yeah.
I like their opinion here, because I also saw some people saying that, like, depending on how this comes down, then all of these cases will be mooted. guarantee that doesn't happen. What would be cool, right? See, here's how they would get mooted. In fantasy land, where the Supreme Court is actually just me and I make all the decisions, the way that this would end up coming down is the only time that a federal agency, an executive agency, would have any ability to interpret laws is if the law specifically says this federal agency will decide this part of this law,
Right.
and not like filling in blanks in parts of the law where it's like this law didn't say the federal agency will decide who pays and how much.
Right.
Right. Like if the law said that, then the Loper case would be non-existent because it said that they could do this.
Right. No. Yep. Makes perfect sense. But yeah, so I guess there's nothing to do but hurry up and wait. And there's also not much, and it's like, don't get super excited for the oral arguments because they very intentionally make it so you can't glean anything from it.
Yeah, it's usually pretty difficult, and like sometimes I think the lower in the court system you go, it's easier and easier to tell sort of their inclination, and that as judges get better at their jobs, they're just like, yeah, whatever.
They also like enjoy messing with the lawyers.
Right. They get a better and better poker face, and they get better at trying to trip up lawyers.
Yeah. Because they like to make you sound stupid.
And so that's sort of the direction that it seems like that all is going is probably it'll come down in our favor. If your favorite gun tuber has been telling you that means that the ATF is gone, simply untrue.
And also
maybe
stupid.
Maybe it will make the ATF have to work a little bit harder the next time that they write some rule, but it's not going to stop them from writing the next rule. What would stop them from writing the next rule is Cargill coming down in our favor. If it came down in our favor in a manner that's like, hey, ATF, you colossal giant dumb idiots, you can't actually take something that was written clearly that doesn't say, hey, ATF, fill in the blanks here, and then start filling in blanks.
Right. I mean, that's how I think Cargill should go. But no one really knows how it's going.
Right. I wouldn't count, like we said before, I wouldn't count Cargill. I wouldn't count on Cargill being a win, at least not on APA grounds. Maybe I think the rule of lenity argument is probably stronger than the APA grounds in Cargill, simply because multiple other circuits have come to the conclusion that pull is analogous to function, and that's really bad, and I'd like to see that get overturned, but that's going to be an overturn.
Yeah, but I don't know, it would be very hard for them to square just eliminating the application of the specific, right? Because function is a term of art,
right?
And it was done intentionally, and there's release triggers, right? And whatever. I don't know, but I feel like Cargill will be a win. That's my little prediction. But I guess you're on the fence about it.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine I'd count on it being a win. The fact that it was granted,
we don't know how narrowly.
Right. The fact that it was granted cert means that it'll be a win. But it could be a win in a way that we're left with a sour taste in our mouth, even though we won, because we're like, wow, that should have gone a lot better, or we had hoped that had gone a lot better. So it's one of those things where, I mean, we'll certainly have to see. It's not like...
And how do you reason that it wouldn't have been granted if it wasn't going to be a win?
Because at least it seems to me that the Supreme Court, as it stands now, it being a 6-3 conservative majority, I guess a 5-4 conservative majority because Roberts, because he exists. I don't think that they would have granted cert on a question on APA grounds that's got a rule of lenity question, unless the majority of the people, saying yes to granting it cert, we're pretty confident that they were going to be, that majority was going to be of one mind about how it goes. And I imagine that would be in the conservative interpretation's favor, which is the APA process shouldn't exist, and that the rule of lenity covers it because it's a gun part. That said, it's like a machine-y, gunny thing, which is maybe the one thing that gives me some pause there, is that the Supreme Court, in all of the cases that they've touched machine guns before, they've been rather hostile to them.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Speaking of touching, a Florida representative has filed a bill to lower the buying age for a firearm to the age of 18. Isn't that touching? But yeah, that's
nice.
Representative Bobby Payne. Yeah, he filed. Go on.
It's a strong name.
It is a strong name.
Bob Payne.
Bob Payne filed House Bill 1223 on Thursday. Similar bill filed on March 6th also looked to reduce the legal age of purchasing a firearm by 3 years. It would overturn part of the law that was approved in 2018 by Rick Scott, which was the Parkland bill. But yeah, this is, I think that's pretty exciting. The thing that's weird, though, is he's introducing that right as the 11th Circuit is like reassessing the 18 to 21 ban anyway.
Right.
So it's kind of like a don't do that too fast. You know what I mean?
Let's get our nice little ruling here first.
Let me pull out a little ruling. So we have the two competing sides. We have the two genders on this issue. Yeah. An 18, 19, 20-year-old does not need an AR-15. If they are purchasing such a weapon, as you saw in the case of Parkland, they're doing so to cause serious bodily harm.
You fucking weirdo.
Okay, weird. Yeah. But Fine said mental health is to blame. Must be a Republican. Yeah. Fine said, as we saw just a few days ago in Iowa, a man who thought he was a woman got so confused about it, he went and killed a bunch of people. So we clearly have a huge mental health problems when people can't figure out if they're boys or they're girls.
And they shoot people about it. I had forgot. I didn't know that's what he was saying when I said, here we have the two genders, but literally these are the two political genders, which are like, yes. AR-15 means you're a murderer versus I need to find a way to bring trans people into this because I can't stop thinking about them. It's all I can think about. Boys wearing dresses. That's why school shoot.
Stop. No, I'm a boy. I'm a boy. God,
I hate modern politics so much.
Awful. This is so.
All political debate should just be who can make the funniest AR-15 lore. Like just you have the conservative gender stand up there and be like, it was a hunting rifle that Mr. Eugene, he designed it so we can go and do a big hunt, and 223 is a tiny little caliber, and it's really weak, and it basically wouldn't even kill anything, and it's like a 22, and a 22 bounces around inside your body, and it's more deadly than a 50 cal.
Poodle shooter in it.
Not the 223 is just a poodle shooter that's not more deadly than a 50
poodle.
cal. Just the 22 long rifle, the little one is more deadly, like a 50 cal. It's not like the M16. The M16 is a completely different.
That one shoot a
it works in a completely different way, and it uses the 5.56. It's much higher pressure.
It's got more numbers in it.
John Lott wrote that recently. He did an op-ed in New Mexico, and he's saying it's like a completely different gun, and it was bizarre. It's like, it's such a weak round, you can't even use it to hunt a deer. I hate this so much. And then of course the other gender is that the AR-15 is like, it cooks the meat, and it's a heat-seeking
war, and the lungs come out. Yeah,
it's a heat-seeking bullet of war.
Yeah, So then I would come in as the other gender. Actually, no, the AR-15, it was designed primarily as a support weapon, and it's the 5.56. That's actually the quantity in grams of thermite that the original loading had, and it only was used because they developed it because they would get confused with the Russian bullets, and it was so they could shoot more civilians than the usual amount. And that's why the AR-15 is the same as the M16. They're really the same because you can put the same meat-seeking bullets in them, and it's a military only design. The only military guns that have ever had that bolt head design.
No, it's not true, because
the FG-42 had the same bolt. The Remington Model 8, the AR-17, all had that same bolt. All military.
No, it's because the M16 has the steel receiver, and the AR-15 got the aluminum.
Well, the big thing is that you notice the firing pin is interchangeable between the M16 and the AR-15, and that's the only, never is there a civilian gun that you can pick up off the store right now and install a military firing pin in there?
No, the AR-15, it uses the steel firing pin, but the M16 in the military, they say you not to lose that firing pin because it's the titanium government proprietary spec.
These are all things that people said.
There's actual things that real human beings have typed out on the internet. It's
on
insane.
Twitter. Yeah, we type words at them and then they type words back at us.
It's actually kind of funny.
Yeah. Anyway, next up, guys, are you sick of credit card companies screwing you over? Well, go to FFL Payment Solutions. That's fflpaymentprocessing.com. Guys, if you are in the gun industry or gun adjacent, you need to go to fflpaymentprocessing.com and just check it out. Get a free rate quote. Why not? You know, I've been to these offices. There are nice people who are willing to talk to you despite everything that you've done. So give them a call. They will tell you what you're paying now, transparent pricing. It's going to be huge. So fflpaymentprocessing.com, get your rates, stop getting screwed over by the credit card companies, the true enemies. It's the great Satan. All right, so next up, we know, so this is so good. Like we knew that literally nobody had registered their guns in Illinois.
like it was like really, really shockingly low. Like people saying 1% probably were overestimating.
Right. So literally no one did it. And then the deadline came and went. And so naturally, when still no one did it, you'd think the government would like do something, right?
They'd pick up the clue phone and say, "Who's this?" And the clue phone would speak into their ear and say, "You should probably just stop. You should give up. You should grill yourself. You should throw yourself in the frying pan with the shrimp and become a shrimp fried rice."
Yeah. Well, so they did do something, and it's that they won't pursue charges if you register your assault weapons now. So please register.
The bizarre thing is, the law says that everything had to be registered before the 1st of this year, and that anything that wasn't registered before the 1st of this year, if you register it late, it doesn't make it legal to possess. And so they're now begging you to register your gun, despite the fact that wouldn't make it legal for you to keep it, by promising like, "Oh, we won't go after you. We would never do anything like that."
Just over 29,000 residents have registered their assault weapons. That accounts for just over 1% of all FOID card holders.
And of course, the JB the Hutt, the good old governor, has been going around saying that, well, the reason there weren't many assault weapons registered is because assault weapons are expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sure.
No, yeah.
And then he keeps saying that, well, the reason that the compliance rates look so low is some people have multiple assault weapons. And I'm like, I don't look, I'm no math genius, but aren't you supposed to be like good at this or something? Like somebody's supposed to write these responses for you?
Are you supposed to like know who
multiple people having multiple of these things would mean that you'd have more of these things registered, right? Like
no.
No, I mean I wouldn't worry about that.
No, it's just because remember, it's 1% of people have 50% of the guns.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure it's something like that. Yeah, no, so that's why.
Yeah.
So yeah, we got 1%. That's 50% of the guns.
Now they did. I think on the 17th of January, they finally adopted the rules, the definitions of what all of these terms in the assault weapons ban actually means, and they've managed to work barrel shroud into being like the definition of barrel shroud is like there's nothing that is a barrel shroud, right? That it can be something that partially encircles the barrel, but if it's like part of the stock or part of the forend or part of something you grip, and it's on the gun normally, and it's not something you added to the gun, it's not a barrel shroud.
Okay, so no barrel shrouds.
Right, like think about an AR-15's handguard. It's meant to be there, and it's something that you grip, and it wasn't something that you added. So an AR-15's handguard, which is what barrel shroud was originally created. I mean, it was meant to go after two things.
For the Tech 9.
It was the Tech 9, and then whenever they'd show pictures of it, whenever they were originally discussing it in the 90s, it was AR-15s, and they'd be like, "This is the barrel shroud," and it's just a handguard, and you're like, And then then also on the Tech 9, because they're like, well, you could hold it and then have two hands on a pistol, and it's like,
And Kellgren goes, "Why, yes."
as opposed to how we shoot handguns normally, which is only with one hand.
Yeah,
Sure, it's still the 1940s or something.
yeah.
So yeah, the salty weapons ban is continuing to be farcical, and I guess because I know people always want the updates. There's a couple of the cases are still saying they're for sure going to appeal the injunction denial to the Supreme Court. At this point, I don't know that that's actually particularly helpful. However, back at the district court, there's a couple of these cases that have saying, okay, let's get to it on the merits. And this back before Mr. Stephen McGlynn, who it seems like, at least from his line of questioning, that he is a gun owner. And in fact, he asked the state why FOID cards take so long to grant, because he's still waiting on his, which is hilarious, or his renewal or whatever. And so a couple of the cases are back before him, going to be briefed on the merits. And McGlynn has said on the preliminary meeting for these merits hearings, he said that he's trying to expedite things as quickly as possible, and that even if the Supreme Court picks up the case and then grants the injunction, he says that's fine because we're just getting to the merits anyway, and that has to happen eventually. So I was like, whoa, that's kind of cool, because he's trying to speed things along.
So next up now, Washington State. What a lovely place. They've got...
But they remember they have
mountain,
pine tree,
stream, and now some fresh new gun laws. So we got this one, HB 2238, imposing a new tax on the sale or transfer of ammunition. Hope you got all your 545, boys, because it's 11% more if this goes through. It's in the committee right now, and you can be sure that will be passing. And then we've got HB 1178, and this is the most cucked shit. I'm sorry. Concerning local government authority to regulate firearms, what's that tell you it is?
They're going to make it so you can't shoot guns?
No, they're getting rid of state preemption. Like, what kind of a state government is like, we can't infringe people's rights fast enough?
We need more jurisdictions to infringe more people's rights more faster.
Yeah, like when do you see a state sovereign trying to divest itself of power to its local counterparts? Like that tells you that something is like fundamentally wrong.
Actually broken.
Yeah, so that's good. And that is in the Civil and Judicial Committee right now in Washington. So those are the one that's really spooky is getting rid of preemption, because if you think state and federal government gets like aggressive and weird, you do not comprehend the time monopoly that local assemblies have.
Yeah.
They can think of some dumb shit, like for real. And there's a reason preemption happened in the first place.
An easy example of this is in California. What with they have to give. Bruin says they have to do a big concealed carry, and they have to give everybody the permits if they ask nicely. And then you have like every single locality is coming up with a particularly uniquely bizarre set of requirements that you have to meet. And then they're charging like $1,300 in licensing fees. And then when asked about these licensing fees, they said that they have a computer program tell them how much it would cost to issue the license, which is interesting because it shouldn't cost you $1,300.
The computer said.
The computer said so. So I mean, we're not trying to violate your rights. The computer said so.
Computer said
what it would cost. And there was one of these, particularly, I think we may have even talked about on the show. One particularly insane set of requirements was that you had to show up and qualify with your gun, but whenever you showed up with your gun to qualify, there was a list of approved guns, and you couldn't use a 1911. You could use anything that was polymer striker fired, but no single action hammer fired guns were allowed at all because they're not modern.
Bad.
None.
World Wars. It was to prevent kittens from dying.
It's like imagine a state that actually does do concealed carry permits that then leaves it up to the locality, and the locality starts passing laws that's like, no, you can't carry 1911s. You actually can't carry a Glock. You have to carry a SIG, and it has to be one that's like dangerous. Only pre-recall 320s, thank you.
Yeah, because those are the only ones we've had the opportunity to look
and like,
at.
Obviously, right, that flies completely afoul of what the Supreme Court instructed in Heller, because the Supreme Court was specifically talking about handguns there, right? But by the time you've sued them and taken them to court over this, it's been a couple of months, and it's been being generous here, like generous on being on the low end of money. It's like $50,000 by that point. You've pissed away a lot of money and a lot of time, and you still haven't actually got your problem solved.
Right. Well, that's great.
What a wonderful thing to look forward to.
We have a wonderful world to live in. But there are wonderful things in the world, such as MAF Corporation. Guys, MAF Corporation has 545 kits, headspaced, good to go, in stock, ready to go. Got to check them out. Made of Poland, and there's all kinds of other cool things. I've told you how important the Set Me L kit is. And look, there's reviews on it. Works well. Makes quite a lot of racket hanging up on my porch. Comes with a tasty little treat. That's true. Did you know that every order from MAF Corporation includes a snack? That's because the president of MAF Corporation is a diabetic and hides them everywhere, so they get into the... But yeah, guys, maf-arms.com. Use promotional code Fuddblasters, and you're going to get yourself a big fat discount, bigger than usual. So check it out. It's important to check it out. Next up, boyos, we got a list from gunsandammo.com, which is a website on the internet.
One of them.
It is the twitching remains of a print rag publication. But they have released their 50-state survey of the best states to live. And what's your bet for number one?
It's going to be Missouri, Arizona, or Texas.
See, I actually know what it is because it hasn't changed in 5 years. And I don't really agree with it. But let's just go down this and see what we think. So 51, New York.
Yep.
Because they include DC.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, you have to really think about it. I guess New York is worse than California in a few ways.
New York is worse than California because New York has more of like the registration stuff because New York's been at it for longer, right? California will get there. They're just lagging.
New York invented it.
Right.
Yeah.
And in New Jersey it makes sense to have 50 because like they don't maybe have as many onerous things as New York and California, but they've got some out there shit like
and they're aggressive,
right? Like this, like the whole smart gun thing and the, and of course they don't enforce a lot of the stuff, admittedly, but like they've got some stuff that's out there. Like they're just like a little fucking sounding room for all of the dumbass things that Moms Demand Action schemes up.
Then Hawaii, which points wise is tied with New Jersey, which interesting. California, unchanged position. Massachusetts, District of Columbia, Connecticut, Maryland, which guys, you need to support Maryland shall issue because that is where they're testing shit.
Speaking of Maryland, I guess we didn't have a story for this, but this is the best place to sneak this one in. So Bianchi, the assault weapons ban case that we've been waiting on for an answer from Maryland for like a year or something now, before the opinion was dropped, they've decided to take it en banc, which is something that the rules allow them to do, but it's something that like actually doesn't ever happen, like ever. In addition,
multiple times in Maryland cases where the en banc court has like, it's one of those things that's like considered an emergency power, and they've just been consistently doing it just in these cases.
Right. So they've grabbed Bianchi, which is the assault weapons case. Yeah. They've grabbed the handgun permitting, the handgun permitting case, and they also grabbed from West Virginia a case that also had arguments before a panel, right? So this one they're also snatching away before the panel writes an opinion, but it was the U.S. versus Price case where it was a guy who was like a not so good person, went and removed some serial numbers from a gun, and the lower court had then found that removing serial numbers from a gun is fine and shouldn't actually be illegal, which is based. And so they took all three of these cases en banc. And at first, it seemed like they were going to hear them on the same day, but I think they're going to be 3 consecutive days now.
Right.
One after the other after the other. And I saw some speculation about this from the gun tubers about how, this is a power grab, and they're trying to power grab, and they're trying to strike down all of these gun cases. I don't imagine that the en banc panel here.
Right.
I don't imagine that these cases, any of them, are going to come down in our favor. However, I'm sure the reason they did this is because between these 3 cases, they realized that the 3 disparate panels were going to come up with 3 completely different versions of the Second Amendment.
Yeah, and then they'd have to rectify it.
Right.
Yeah, which would be impossible. So they're like, yeah, no, it does make sense. If you look at it from a,
like a logistical standpoint, like they realize that they're going to get Bruin wrong, but this way they can get Bruin wrong once instead of get Bruin wrong 3 different, unique, stupid ways.
Right. Yeah. Because if they did it in 3 unique, stupid ways, that would not look good.
Like you have a circuit split. You have a circuit split in your own circuit.
Yeah. That's true. Anyway, moving back onto the list, Maryland, then Rhode Island, Delaware, Illinois.
Illinois.
Lost a place. Washington gained a place. Minnesota down.
Washington
Colorado
got better.
Yeah.
Because Washington also got their salty weapons ban.
Yep. So yeah, Minnesota and Colorado swapped. Vermont still 37, Oregon 36, Virginia 35, New Mexico 34, Iowa is down to 33, Pennsylvania is down to 32, Michigan's down to 31, Nebraska's up now 30, Maine is up 29, Nevada's up 28, Louisiana's gone down to 27th, North Carolina's gone up to 26 because they finally were like, okay, we did a racism.
Oops, sorry.
Yeah. Wisconsin's down to 25. South Carolina's down 24. Ohio's down 23. Florida is up 22. Woo! Florida mentioned.
Yeah.
21. Mississippi unchanged. West Virginia down 20. Missouri down 19. New Hampshire's the same at 18. Alabama's down 17. Arkansas has taken Alabama's place. Indiana at 15. Kentucky 14. Georgia 13. Oklahoma is down to 12. Alaska's 11. Kansas 10. Texas 9. Tennessee, despite everything, despite all that you tried, is up to 8. South Dakota 7. Arizona's down to 6, switching with North Dakota, who's now 5. Utah's 4. Montana's 3. Idaho's 2. And Wyoming is 1.
Huh.
Wyoming is so, and I'd met their top lizard, and like, I am convinced that it's a scam. Because like it's not that great, but they have like been actively doing things to welcome gun companies that like haven't exactly worked, but like the fact that there's movement on the table, right? Like it looks good, and I guess gains them points when you try to game it out. But I would. So I the one thing I'm surprised here is how low Arkansas is.
Yeah, Arkansas was weird, and then the fact that Texas is beating Missouri is really strange to me because Texas like specifically the armor piercing ban that Texas has where it's like even more severe than the federal armor piercing ban, and that always sits at the front of my mind where it's like Texas really is more strict on that particular aspect than even the federal government is.
I think Florida's just right in the middle. We're not that great. We have bad laws. And our government, all they can do is argue about boys and girls.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that the Republicans have held the government for like ever, they just won't do anything. Aside from pass gun laws, the Republicans will get together to do that once they're pushed by Corcoran. But
the wild thing is that like, once, like I always thought that like whenever people decided to stop arguing about abortion, I always thought to myself like hopefully they'll move to something that actually matters. And it's amazing because they managed to go down a rung. It's like, let's find something that's even more stupid to argue about, and let's argue about it very intensely and meanly. We'll be very mean to each other and argue about a stupid thing. This is politics. This is we pay these people for this. It's crazy. We're forced at gunpoint to pay these people to fight in this arena.
If we don't pay them to fight, they come and hurt us. We get to go in their special box. So you have to pay to go in the box, by the way. But yeah. Last story. And this is also from Florida. From a judge in Tampa. Ban on guns in post offices unconstitutional rules. Catherine Kimball Mizzelli. She's a Trump appointee. And yeah, there was basically a post office worker that was carrying who was criminally indicted, which
is insane.
Yeah, why would you do that? It's like you're trying to lose. Yeah, and she dismissed part of the indictment. She did not dismiss his resisting arrest charge, which is based.
Resisting arrest is good. And wasn't his resisting arrest? Wasn't his resisting arrest that he just left? He went home. He was like, yeah, whatever.
I don't know. It was something retarded. But like, I do think that, and like, I get it from like a hyper procedural technicalist point of view, right? But if they were trying to arrest you for something unconstitutional, I feel like all of those corollary things should also be,
yes, it's weird because like the other high profile instance of this to me that stuck out was the like the Uber driver that the YouTube prankster tried to prank and then he got counter pranked with a gun.
He sorted him out.
He got off on
pranked his circulatory system.
He got off on self-defense, but then the judge but then the jury convicted him for having fired the gun inside of a building, which is a separate thing, despite the fact that he was off on self-defense. And the judge, I think the judge,
is an element of necessity.
Right. Then I think the judge denied the initial request to throw that one out. But I think I don't know if we followed up on the show, but I'm pretty sure I read something that was like he did finally get off on that. So yay, it's now 100% legal to shoot YouTube pranksters.
Finally, the law is caught up.
I love America. There was a thread of Europeans that like seen like the video was on Twitter. And there's a great big thread of Europeans being like, "Is this what America's like?" And then I did my patriotic duty and responded to them and was like, "Yes." This is what it's like. YouTube pranksters are not welcome here.
Yeah, we don't want those. So guys, last up, it's patriotpatch.co, and I just got this patch in the mail, but it's all the way over there, and so I'm sorry it's not on the thing, but it's cool. It's this
abominable snowman.
Yeah, the abominable snowman in a Jeep with tank treads, which that would work somehow, I guess.
Guess.
See, that's the problem with having a mechanical mind, is that you look at something like that and then try to reason it into existence.
I guess it would work. Probably somebody's done it. Probably some cool guy's done it.
Yeah, some totally cool guy.
Speaking of which, it's been cold, right? And then it snowed. Yeah. At least in the worser part of the country, it was cold and snowed. And consistently, every time that I was driving when there was snow on the ground, I would get stuck behind a Jeep that's doing 20. It's like, oh my God, there is some snow on the ground, and the Jeeps are like, gotta drive 20.
I'm scared.
This is close to being off road, and I wasn't made for that.
Oh my God,
that's horrible. I have a personal vendetta against Jeep drivers, Jeep Americans. If you,
I hate Jeep Americans. Here in Orlando, there's a huge like culture of Jeep Americans, and they have this little place they hang out called Jeepers Den. And you see all these like lifted, jacked up within the like flex. They do that thing where they like park on a big rock.
Yeah.
And, right. And you know what I always notice about them? They're fucking spotless.
Yeah, they're spotless, and they don't have like any scratches anywhere underneath them because they've never actually gone over anything. Yeah. Of course, I wondered if you took a Jeep into the wetlands, how many helicopters would show up with people armed with newspapers to beat you? Like, how mad would they be if you went mudding in the wetlands? I feel like they'd get upset.
There's some parts they don't care about. But in general, it would be looked with disfavor. Like
if you wanted to like go run down some crocodiles.
Anyway, guys, it's patriotpatch.co. Use promotional code TWIG10. That's Twig10 and get a discount on your order. So check it out. All right, y'all. That's it for the moment. I will be at SHOT Show this week. And
Show.
Yeah, I'm excited because I have a weapon. And I'm going to get to the bottom of some stuff. I am so excited to point this at stuff. But yeah, what do you have anything fun happening?
I don't know that I have a ton of fun stuff happening. I'm back in the swing of things, and I'm making a fun shooty gun happy fun time.
Whoa.
But I guess like the big fun is Fuddblasters season 2 is coming soon to a viewing Fuddblasters YouTube channel #1 near you.
That's true.
Soon.
That's true. So you guys got to take a look out from that. And if you haven't yet, subscribe to the Fuddblasters YouTube channel. It's important.
Because eventually we'll talk about a gun that you have that you've built your identity around, and you'll need to go in those comments and tell us how dumb and stupid and ugly we are for being wrong.
And then when you do that, we will stop what we're doing and apologize.
Yeah, we'll certainly do that.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. We will see you next time. Every time, what is this awful? Where's the good one? Oh my God. How many of okay, whatever. We're doing this one.